and welcome to Tea for Two, the PCW podcast, where we get to know people in our community and hear stories of transformation. This is a new podcast, and so why are we doing this? Because it is fun, and we are building community, and we hope that it establishes more connection. Jesus says for us to love our neighbor, and so how can we love our neighbor without actually knowing our neighbor? It is hard to make an enemy image out of someone or out of our neighbor who we know and love. And so today our neighbor is Frank Rellosa, who is a wonderful person and member of our church. And so Frank, we are just so excited to have you with us today and looking forward to getting to know you just a little bit more too.
Happy to be here, and I love the Spanish pronunciation of my last name. That was wonderful. I'm not so good at that. I was raised in Edison, so they really get it.
Well, welcome. You were raised in Edison, but now you are also a member of Presbyterian Church in Westfield. So what brought you to the Presbyterian Church in Westfield?
It was actually pretty random. It was me walking through the streets of Westfield, really bored one day, in a pretty bad mood where things in life were getting a little weird. Just transitioning between, your early 30s and having kids. And I was in a weird place. Saw the really pretty, church on the hill one Sunday morning and walked in and heard a nice sermon. So that's how I got kind of drawn to the church. It was a weird sort of calling that day.
That's really that's powerful. That's I think what churches hope will happen from time to time is that people find when they need to find them. So you you mentioned that you grew up in Edison. Was Scotch Plains also part of your past?
Scotch Plains is my current. So I grew up in Edison, raised Catholic, and then sort of didn't have a faith for a while, and then lived all over the place. And then once I had kids, moved back to Scotch Plains, which is like 2 miles from my house in Edison. So very close.
How have you seen, so you've been in this area for your life, other than travel and things, it sounds like, but how have you seen the community evolve over time?
Well, Jersey in general, I've seen just a lot of immigration. A lot of people from different places move here, not just from other countries, but every part of America, which is nice. It's a nice sort of melting pot of ideas and people around here. So that's been a big change. We've gotten more crowded. And, I think people have gotten more polarized in the past few years in New Jersey. So I'm probably everywhere, but you notice it more when it's your sort of home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like when you say polarized, sounds like maybe across the board, or are you thinking?
Oh yeah, everything. We can fight about everything now. If you've ever been to one of the Facebook pages for any one of the towns, you'll just it's fun. It's fun to see what we can fight over.
Yeah, it's interesting what people have, what drives them and where their passion ends up, how it comes out, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
So
that's why it's on social media. Like I'm grateful when they do
that. So you work with people. So you know people in some ways. You work in management consultant, finance. I'm curious, like what is that like for you? What does a typical day look like for you?
So it's sort of a amalgamation of two different hats, right? I'm a management consultant, which is, contrary to popular belief, probably the world's oldest tradition, right? Where people are like, hey, I think I can help you with something, and I'm going to take a cut if I do. And then there's the working with people in finance, specifically hedge funds and private equity, who are sort of the masters of the universe in our, right now in finance. So it's kind of two different hats that I wear, and they come together, to really help, people invest better. Whether that's true or not, like it's up for debate, but that's sort of my industry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, like I'm sure I know in conversations with you, you meet lots of different types of people. And
Sure,
I know in our conversations, I've heard you say that there's like a sense of calling and ministry in a way. And I'm curious if you can share a little bit more about that. Like, what does your calling feel like? And even I've heard you talk a bit about like seminary at
sure,
some point.
yeah,
So what,
sure.
share more about that.
So, I've had a lot of life experiences in a lot of different things, and we'll talk about sort of my work right now. So I work with a lot of ultra wealthy people, some of the billionaire class of the world, and the people who support them who make lots of money as well. Um, there is a lot of loneliness there. There's a lot of um, just general unhappiness with life that
Mm,
drives them, right? And I think there is a calling there to sort of, you know, not to make them change their ways so much, but I think just like any other human being, they need help, just kind of finding a way, right?
mm,
So I've seen it there. I've taken some very rich people, very influential people. I've taken them through the first AA meeting before. You know, I've been there when they have everything in life and they lose a child. So and I've seen them lose marriages and things like that. And you know, uh, one thing as you start to get more wealth or more prestige, it a lot of times it takes you away from God, right?
mm.
Very smart people who are who could probably do a lot, but somehow lose their way. So I think it's important to have somebody there to help them find their way back, which leads into sort of a ministry of for myself of how do you affect change, and it really is person by person, you know so hopefully it's really meeting people where they're at, and as Jeremy used to say, in different parts of our lives, and appearances don't really reflect who these people really are or where they're really at in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just sort of taking in what you just said about how like as someone gains more wealth and prestige, that doesn't mean that they are um that they'll never experience loneliness or loss or grief or suffering and pain. Um and how often is it that I think as a society we say, "Oh, they're fine. They're good." Um but there
And
is
it
the
doesn't
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that too, like it's everybody, most people have the foxhole prayer, right? They're taking incoming and they are just praying that something will happen. And you know um it's harder when everybody's telling you you got this and everything's okay, you don't want for anything,
Mm.
and to still have that same prayer, right? um that's a hard thing to do, right? And helping people find that peace again and that serenity is important to me.
Yeah. And that sounds like a true calling
Yeah,
by the
and
describe.
also one that I didn't really want, by the way.
That
you know
sounds like a true
I've talked to
calling,
Jeremy about this before, and I was like, I really wish I didn't have to have this calling. My life would be a lot easier, you know so
which once again, I'll reiterate that sounds like a true calling, one that you don't necessarily really want, but it's the one that fits and the one that makes you come alive.
sure, absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, so recently you, I guess, technically experienced a different kind of calling or a tangential calling. And I've heard it defined that a calling is where your interests and the world's needs intersect. And that
Hmm.
happened at PCW when you were invited to and agreed to be ordained as an elder. So we
Hmm.
speak people being called to be leaders of the church. So, do you, what hope do you have for our church community and congregation, or say anything else about your thoughts about becoming an elder and how you hope that is for you?
I have, one thing about being an elder in the church is that I've loved to hear everybody's sort of faith stories and their faith journey. Um, I think it's been fascinating, especially with a lot of the members who've been here for a long time, just hearing their stories and continuing the traditions of the church over, decades. What I hope for the church is I hope we grow the church. I hope we are able to continue that tradition and find new members, find people where they're at, find those people who are in pain and suffering and lonely, and we bring them into the fold. And I think that really does help our current congregation because, again, if we're not close to it, we lose sight of it. And I think it needs to be in our face. We need to be working with it every day, and really get that joy out of it, that I think is important in all our lives.
Sounds challenging and uplifting and energizing all at the same time.
Yeah, we'll make it fun. I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, it's really just getting people together, getting them talking. We don't all have to believe the same thing. In fact, many times I don't believe the same thing on a daily basis. So, what really matters is that we're all in it together and that everybody finds somebody, their person that can kind of help them through this journey.
I love that. Yeah. Well, we're going to shift a little bit to maybe some more lighthearted questions.
Sure.
Not that these have been like super, super intense. But as a father of two, what is something you love to do with your children?
Oh, we're my kids and I are really into sports. Actually, they're into sports because I'm into sports and I still have, I still have influence over what they do. So we do a lot of sports together. I mean, and that's become sort of our social circle as well of soccer dads and moms. And having a really close wrestling team. Wrestling is another sport that, we usually take in the kids who don't do other sports. And a lot of times, I get a lot of kids with social or emotional sort of issues. And it's been great to have my kids in that same environment while I'm coaching, where we built this extended family of kids who, many times did not belong in a lot of other sports or, and it's a hard thing. So that's been taking up a lot of our time together. So.
But sports, though, I love that.
Yeah, I'm pretty suburban. You know what I mean?
Nice physical activity and yeah, it's like good bonding and with your team and with your sports. It's fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's been nice because you do form those bonds with people, and it's been great to just be part of the community here in Scotch Plains, being able to just build a program from the ground up and really help a lot of kids.
I'm sensing from all of this conversation that you, in your life and in your way of being, that generally like connection is very important to you, and building community around you for everybody are really central just to your being, which I wish we should all endeavor to be more like that. So thank you. But But here's
Well,
an
yeah, I
easy.
mean, like, I think one of the worst feelings you could ever feel is being left out. If you ever want to like make somebody feel bad, just do an invite to every one of their friends except for them to a party, and that's a really painful thing. And there's moments in life where you experience that, and I don't want that for anybody else. I mean, like it's such a painful feeling for people to just be left out or be alone, and there's again, the appearance of things is not always what they are, right? So
I I've seen it written that like what happens like in a house, like in a family, is like a black box to anybody else. Um, so yeah, we just when you talk about meeting people where they are, let's meet people where we see them out in the world as well as we can. But here's an easy question. What's the last movie that you saw?
man,
Well, maybe it's not easy. I don't know.
that's not. I'm trying to think of the last time I had 2.5 hours to watch a movie without falling asleep on myself. Um, I think it was. I think I watched King Kong and Godzilla with my son. I think that was the last movie I actually watched. Yeah, like nothing of any kind of substance other than like sitting with a 9-year-old and watching things blow up.
I missed that one. Was there a winner?
I don't remember because I think I fell asleep, to be honest with you. Like I don't think I made it to the movie. I'm trying to think of like who won that battle. Like I think they end up being friends or something. I don't remember.
That's
think,
sweet. That's kind. Connection. And
yeah, yeah.
From
Well, that was
combat
King Kong's thing. Right? He couldn't find connection, so
they're combating loneliness, so that's a good thing.
absolutely, absolutely.
So these are some questions that we've asked every person we've interviewed. What have you been learning lately?
What have I been learning lately? I've been on a project learning about greenhouse gases and carbon credits and how renewable fuels work, and trying to figure out how to make that carbon market even bigger and save the world and decarbonize it. So that's been my project lately. That's become all encompassing.
Awesome. And what has been challenging lately?
Um, so I haven't been working, I've been on one project. I haven't been working at the normal pace that I have for the past few years where I'm doing lots of things at one time. Even though I still am doing a lot of stuff. It's been challenging to have downtime because like downtime gives me anxiety. Like I always feel like I should be doing something. So, it does resonate when we talk about having a Sabbath and really taking a rest.
what do you hate to run out of?
Toilet paper. What do I hate to run out of? What else? Time. I hate running out of time.
Yeah. And our last question, what has made you smile?
Kids laughing. Just hearing the sound of kids laughing, it makes me smile.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Frank, thank you so much for being on our podcast, Tea for Two. And we hope that for all those who are watching or listening, that you can, next time you see Frank, talk to him about the podcast, or maybe you yourself would like to be interviewed. And so we'd love to know that as well. But until next time, we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and peace be with each of you.